I got another tornado video for you guys. The Millbury EF4. Apparently this thing destroyed a whole police station. Let's go.
It's June 5th, 2010, and in the pitch blackness, there is a monster tornado tossing police cars in Lake Township, Ohio. It's the first weekend of June in northwestern Ohio. Lake area is getting warm, the beach is bustling with kids on summer break, and the deciduous trees are in full bloom. High schoolers across the state are hosting grad parties, even though for some, graduation would be the following week. Morning showers eventually give way to clearing skies by the afternoon, but for the first time all year, it is humid and windy. The atmosphere feels unstable.
That don't sound good at all, don't it?
In the atmosphere, the jet stream roared across the Midwest at 70 knots, but it remained relatively flat. There were no massive diving troughs that would bring a burst of cold air. It was June. Those days were long gone. However, there were much smaller shortwaves embedded in this jet stream. These shortwaves, if timed perfectly, can help initiate and sustain severe thunderstorms directly below. Additionally, a jet streak within the jet stream was located just west of Indiana, which would provide a subtle rising motion directly to the east, another necessary ingredient. A surface low originally over eastern Iowa began to move eastward throughout the day, deepening rapidly, aiding to the uneasy feeling as the day progressed. With available potential energy in the warm sector nearing 3,000 joules per kilogram and storm relative helicity values over 250,
That went over my head. I don't even know what he said, but it sounds like there's some elements of being able to come together and create some type of storm or something. I don't know. Someone break that down for me. Yeah, that went over my head. That part where he went to that.
Uneasy feeling as the day progressed. With available potential energy in the warm sector nearing 3,000 joules per kilogram and storm relative helicity values over 250, the atmosphere was ripe for severe weather.
Oh, yeah, sure.
The Lankan tornado west PM. The southern supercell began to rotate and shortly after produced a thin tornado west of Yates City. Snaking its way east, it exploded several barns along county roads. Flooded with tornado sightings and significant damage reports, the Weather Service issued a tornado emergency for the northern Peoria metropolitan area, a move only made in dire circumstances. Although only a city block wide, the tornado sliced directly through the main street of Elmwood, where an outdoor city festival was taking place. It flipped cars, toppled trees, and pulled apart the historic brick businesses clustered at the center of town. Thankfully, everyone who attended the festival sheltered in the basement of the Elmwood movie theater. The town suffered 0 fatalities. The low precipitation supercell produced 2 brief, weaker tornadoes as it moved through northern Peoria, but the tornado emergency was canceled shortly after. It's 9:30 Eastern, and something interesting has happened. This is your line of storms getting squeezed by the cold front. These are your prefrontal supercells that have been actively producing tornadoes the past 2 hours. What's going on here? Another cluster of storms seems to be forming in northeastern Indiana. Why is that? Well, storms need boundaries to form. Whenever colder, drier air pushes into warm, moist air, clouds or storms will form depending on how unstable the atmosphere is. So while tornadoes were favorable within that entire 10% risk zone, the actual temperature boundaries that would initiate the storms were not yet known. One of those temperature boundaries happened to be right over northern Indiana.
Right, because, and I want to go back on that, my perspective, like that cool air, warm air rises, cool air stays below, right? And so as it does that and it sweeps across, what you get that. You start developing them supercells.
How unstable the atmosphere is. So while tornadoes were favorable within that entire 10% risk zone, the actual temperature boundaries that would initiate the storms were not yet known. One of those temperature boundaries happened to be right over northern Indiana. It had been raining most of the day, and the thing about rain is that it cools the surrounding air. So when this warm front began lifting north and drifted over this rain-cooled air, it initiated several small supercells in northern Indiana. Look at how far removed these supercells are from the cold front and how much prime real estate is in front of them. The southerly winds at 850 millibars were increasing as well, known as a low-level jet, supplying these storms with strong, warm inflow. Not only that, but the storms were now very close to the surface low center, an area with increased vorticity, which translates to rotating updrafts. As the sun was setting, northwestern Ohio was in big trouble. While both the Detroit and Fort Wayne Doppler radars were in reach of this storm, both radar beams were scanning at elevations above 7,000 feet. Rotation close to the ground would not be visible. However, the Northwest Ohio spotter network was quite strong, and if the Detroit radar did detect high-level rotation, chances are a tornado would be imminent given the atmospheric conditions. And sure enough, the southern storm developed clear rotation on radar, a tornado warning was issued, and a funnel cloud was reported by EMA near Evansport. Chris Vickers was live on WTOL covering the tornado warning and would be for the next few hours. If anything, southern Toledo had an incredibly long lead time, which would lead to some great decisions being made, as well as some tragic outcomes. A few minutes after the funnel cloud was spotted, a tornado touched down to the northwest of Neapolis. It rolled through forested land, toppling trees, threading the needle between two RV campgrounds. The 130-mile-an-hour winds could have easily tossed the campers, a situation that has proved to be fatal time and time again.
Yeah, thank goodness it dodged them, right?
Although this didn't happen, the storm was barreling towards the Toledo metro. A temperature boundary existed along the lakeshore that helped intensify the storm's updraft, producing 1-inch hail to the east of Perrysburg. By some miracle, the storm didn't cycle in time to drop a tornado in the densely populated suburb. But with conditions like this, it had to happen somewhere. And that somewhere was directly atop the Friendly Village trailer park. The tornado was weak upon touchdown and spared the mobile home community. Within the next 30 seconds, the wind speeds at ground level would near double as the widening vortex approached southern Moline. The homes in the Indian Creek subdivision were less than a decade old, and this would be the biggest endurance test they've ever faced. Thankfully, only one home suffered significant damage. Crossing over State Route 795, the winds strengthened to over 150 miles per hour. Bailey Bowman and Gerald Lathrop were driving home from the Old West End Festival near downtown Toledo. It's a fantastic yearly affair with the parade, food and art vendors, yard sales, and tours of famous historical sites in the neighborhood. Hearing of bad weather, they left early, and George was heading back to his parents' house on Lucky Road when the tornado appeared in front of them on 795. If you were in this situation, would you pull into the parking lot of this police station and try to run inside to seek shelter, or would you make a left and try to drive out of the tornado's path? Well, they did the right thing. Instead of continuing to drive while a monster lurked in the darkness, they made a hard right, pulled into the police station parking lot, abandoned their car, and ran for the entrance. But unfortunately, the tornado was already there. It dismantled the west side of the police station piece by piece, tossing police cruisers across the grass. One car was found a quarter mile away. Bailey was killed by flying debris as her body was found in the grass. There's no question that they did the right thing, but although they had no way of knowing, had they instead made a left and drove south, they could have made it home unscathed.
So they didn't make the right choice.
To make matters worse, Lake Township now had no emergency response team to aid in the devastation that was yet to come. Just to the east of the police station, Irwin Welling and his wife Bernie were sound asleep in their home on Moline Martin Road when the tornado slammed into the western side. The two-story home collapsed around them, burying them in rubble. They would be rescued a few hours later, but 87-year-old Irwin would die from his injuries within a few days. This is where their home once stood. Across the street was an airplane hangar at the Toledo Executive Airport. The steel walls acted like sails as the tornado roared through, peeling away and flying down the street. And then, the high school. 20 hours from now, the students would be gathered in the gymnasium for the class of 2010 graduation ceremony. But instead, an EF4 tornado was tearing through campus, twisting steel and rolling school buses. Commencement would have to be held elsewhere, and a new school must be built. As the tornado crossed Interstate 280, a Toledo area resident was standing on the Wallbridge Road overpass 2 miles to the north, filming on his camcorder. He captured the tornado illuminated by power flashes, although quite out of focus. This is likely the moment that Kathleen Hammett drove into the tornado on Route 795. She knew there was bad weather and just wanted to get home. Unfortunately, she drove into the very thing she never even saw and was killed upon impact. As the twister descended from the highway,
That's what I'm saying, man. That's the most fearful thing. A nocturnal tornado or a tornado that you just can't even see. That's the most scariest thing.
Snapped several electric transmission towers that connected the Lemoyne substation with downtown Toledo. And then was Milbury, a small community on the southeastern fringe of the Toledo metro. By this point, Chris Vickers was tracking the storm live on WTOL for an hour, so if people were paying attention, they knew exactly what was coming. And thankfully, they took shelter. But picture this. A tornado is minutes away. You have your family sheltered in your basement. All is well. Except
Right.
you forgot to turn on the generator for the sump pump, putting the basement at risk for flooding. Additionally, the family dog is upstairs, and you're worried about him. Do you dare leave the basement? This was the predicament that towered over Ted Krantz on Case Road. He decided to go upstairs, and unfortunately, that was the last thing he ever did. The high-end EF3 winds destroyed his home while his family survived in the basement below. In an interview, Ted's brother explained that Ted wanted to turn on the generator, which was outside when the power went out. The crumpled electric transmission towers were 0.9 miles southwest.
You just don't have enough time, man. When it tells you to take cover, you don't have no much time. It's only like bare minimum, maybe 30 seconds to a minute by the time. And then that's it. You know what I'm saying? You never know. So it's just, man, it's sad stories because there's plenty of stories like this that happens where they go back out there. Maybe there's a dog or a cat or something they left out, and then you never hear from them again.
Of Case Road. With the forward speed of 55 miles per hour, there was a maximum of 58 seconds between the power going out and the tornado hitting Case Road. Ted
What'd I
was
tell you?
likely outside of his home right
What'd I tell you? I ain't even seen the video. It said 58 seconds. He had 0.9 miles. He had 58 seconds. That thing was coming through and bulldozing the house. You just don't have that much time.
going out and the tornado hitting Case Road. Ted was likely outside of his home right when the tornado hit. The power going out during a tornado warning should always be a last-minute signal to stay in your shelter and wait for the storm to pass. Within the cornfields west of Main Street, the tornado intensified. The exact cause is not known. It's impossible to identify every small-scale disturbance around a tornado that causes the wind fields to fluctuate. It's what makes tornadoes seem like living and breathing beings.
Wait. What is that? Is that the Walking Dead man type of tornado?
The wind fields to fluctuate. It's what makes tornadoes seem like
You see that? It's like two legs.
living and breathing beings, and often
Oh,
appear
yeah.
to have a
That's
mind of
scary.
their own. But now the vortex was spinning at over 170 miles per hour as it slammed into 10 homes on Main Street. The Walters family home was dead center in the tornado's path. Ryan, Mary, and their son Hayden passed away as their home was swept off its foundation. Miraculously,
Dang,
7-year-old Maddie survived. These homes, although existing within a narrow damage path, were clearly subject to a violent tornado. The absolute obliteration of well-built homes is well deserving of the EF4 rating, and this was the worst tornadic damage in Ohio since the Van Wert wedge of 2002. The 170-mile-an-hour winds lasted only for 30 seconds, and the twister weakened slightly as it crossed Woodville Road, still heavily damaging 4 homes. And then, the twister began to occlude. Over the course of the next mile, atop cornfields and farmhouses, the narrow funnel became narrower. And somewhere in this field, the tornado lifted. 9 miles and only a couple hundred yards wide, hardly a long-track tornado, but managed to impact 2 towns, a police station, an airport, a high school the day before graduation, and kill 7 people. The high school
Wow.
graduation was held at Owens Community College the following Tuesday, with one other significant change. Katie Krantz was chosen to be a valedictorian for the commencement ceremony. However, understandably so, let a classmate take the podium after her father passed away. It was a tragic and jarring end to their high school career, but the community
Dang.
rallied around the students and the rebuilding process began. Today, you'd never know a nighttime EF4 tore through that stretch of northwestern Ohio, unless you stop and talk with any of the locals. They will
Yeah.
never, ever forget.
Man, it's again, man, you can't stress it enough. Sheltering, knowing the timing, able to make sure you're fully set and you're paying attention and doing the best you possibly can, man. Prayers out to all the people who have still been affected to this day with this tornado, man. Thank you for the recommendation in the comment section as well. If y'all want to see more tornado reactions and breakdowns, hit that subscribe button. See you on the next one. Peace.